Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Live NFL Week 4 on Sportsnet, YouTube, Facebook Live, and on Twitch. Andy McNamara alongside Shoaib. Alli. You can get us on Twitter at AndyMC81, at SNS Alli. You can comment in the comment section below on whatever platform you're watching on right now. Get all your fantasy football questions in for kickoff show. Holy man, this has been a grind. This has felt like a week's worth in like 2 days of news. Who's playing, who's not, who's got COVID, who doesn't, what game is rescheduled.
Man,
it's all over the place. We have an update coming out just a moment ago from Adam Schefter on the Chiefs and Patriots game, right?
exactly. Yeah, Patriots Chiefs, which has been up in the air seemingly all weekend after Cam Newton tested positive. I think I had seen that Schefter had tweeted earlier this morning that the Patriots, other than Newton, of course, all the Patriots had come back negative. They're still waiting on Chiefs, I think, to come back negative as well. But just minutes ago, Adam Schefter tweeting, Patriots Chief will kick off at 7:05 p.m. on Monday night on CBS, while Falcons Packers will kick off at 8:50 p.m. Eastern. So that is the plan as of now. Plans, of course, can still change. We'll see what happens later today with the Chiefs. We'll see what happens when they do testing tomorrow on Monday morning.
Yep.
But for now, the Patriots Chiefs game is on for Monday night.
And good news also coming out of New Orleans. Alvin Kamara, it was a false positive test. He's fine. He's fine. The best player in fantasy football is going to play in Alvin Kamara. So 2 false negatives, him and the fullback. Lions and Saints are a go as per usual. That one going out of Detroit. So that's a plus. Now for the Saints, though, some big injury news that carries over to the week show. We got Michael Thomas out. Jared Cook out for the Saints. That's pretty huge. For the 49ers, on a different game, Deebo Samuel in, but Kyle Shanahan said he is going to be on a snap count. They're going to, quote, ease him in. So that to me means if you got Deebo in your lineup, you might want to park him for another week.
Man, can you imagine, Andy, being one of the players on basically either the Eagles or the 49ers? Because that's the Sunday night game tonight. It's Eagles at 49ers. And both teams are just ravaged, injury ravaged from top to bottom, basically. I feel bad because, remember last week we talked about, let's see, I feel like we may have discussed people like Kendrick Bourne, Jordan Reed, and look how that turned out, as you cautioned. No Jordan Reed.
I knew he'd get injured. Man. I knew it. Back to the IR for old Jordy. There he goes.
What about your guy though, Greg Ward, on the other side of things? Greg Ward is pretty much the only healthy receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, other than Zach Ertz, who of course is a tight end, and our guy Dallas Goedert, Goddard out on IR.
So
that's brutal.
That's show literally, and this isn't like using literally. And you're using it incorrectly.
Right.
Literally, Greg Ward was the only healthy wide receiver available to practice on Thursday. The only one for the Eagles. The only one. That's it. It's insane. So Greg Ward, I think, is an absolute must start when we're looking there. Earlier in the week, he was owned in about 12% of different fantasy leagues. I had him in my sleepers article pick. That's up now on sportsnet.ca and waiver wire articles earlier in the week on Tuesday. But now he's been rapidly added. Check to see if Greg Ward's there. You pop him in because it's not a case of like, he's a body. He's someone that put up over 20 fantasy points last week. And remember last year when the same type of thing happened to the wide receiver core in Philly, he put up some big fantasy numbers there as well.
It's true. Yeah. Greg Ward is not, I would say for this year, I think a lot of people expected him to kind of, quote unquote, like come back down to earth. And then all these injury ravaged receivers have popped up again. So Greg Ward is back on the menu, right?
He's back, baby.
He is. I think he's a great option. The 49ers defense is no slouch. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, Carson Wentz has to throw the ball to somebody not named Zach Ertz. You can't throw the ball, 50 times to Zach Ertz? As much as you would love that as a Zach Ertz owner, he's not going to do that. So no. Greg Ward is a good fill-in play, certainly for this week.
Yeah, and you got Miles Sanders, who's been a stud as well. And the 49ers defense really banged up also. So it is a good play, I think,
sure.
When you look at Philadelphia. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest injury news, COVID updates if anything else happens. Hopefully they do not, but we'll keep you up to date on all that. Get your questions in the comment section. Let's start some off here. We got Scott on Facebook, Will Fuller or Gage, and that's Russell Gage for Atlanta. And I really like Russell Gage, and I think for this question, I'll answer the question first. I think Will Fuller is the start there because he's going to get the targets, the lead target share. But for Gage, we've seen the first 3 weeks. Right now, Gage left last week because of a concussion. He's cleared, but there's been enough ball to go around in Atlanta for all 3 of these guys.
No, exactly. I think, too, it's interesting, right? When you look at the Texans, I'll start with the Texans. And all the listeners and viewers know that I have been so up and down, and now I think I'm out on Will Fuller just because the roller coaster that is the Will Fuller experience is terrifying, frankly. It's a 0 one week, then it's a 15 the other week, then it's a 2 another week, and it's never ending, just always going up and down. So I really feel like even in this situation, it is clearly the better play, if only because Julio's going to play, Calvin Ridley's going to play, Hayden Hurst is there. I agree with you that there is enough ball for all of them, but you think about who they're playing. The Packers are a little more of a stingier defense than they had been in years past, and on the flip side, the Texans are playing the Minnesota Vikings, one of the worst defenses in fantasy football.
Bad secondary.
It's a bad secondary, bad rush defense. It's just a bad defense from top to bottom. So I would say you go with Will Fuller. But look, I got to say, I don't feel super confident about it because Will Fuller has the potential to give you a week-winning week or a dud, basically, right? But
Mr. Hamstring.
Exactly, that hamstring. He apparently was okay in practice this week, so I guess you have to roll him out because, like you say, he is the number one option there. But it's closer than I think it perhaps appears. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. And for Will Fuller, if you were in Vegas and you were betting, more often than not, you would be winning if you were to say that out of a game, Will Fuller would leave with some sort of injury designation. If you were playing roulette, you'd have better odds playing the Will Fuller roulette game of he's going to leave with an injury or not. You'd be rich in Vegas if you were doing that with Will Fuller. God. But when we look at Atlanta too, so Julio Jones, questionable but will play. Calvin Ridley more banged up, but looks like he will suit up as well. So you wonder again, is there going to be a snap count at all? And that's why I like Gage. But I will agree with you. I'll go with Will Fuller on this one.
Cool.
Let me see here. Patrick on Facebook, CeeDee Lamb, Hollywood Brown, Chark, or Justin Jefferson at WR2. And we talked about this show on the Fantasy Show, 8 to 10 Eastern, across the Sportsnet radio network every Sunday morning, delivered by Domino's Pizza, about Justin Jefferson, maybe better for a longer-term play this season.
Right. Exactly, yeah. I think it was something like, on the flip side, because we were just talking about Will Fuller for the Texans secondary, who the Vikings are playing this week, of course, the Texans secondary, I think, gives up something like the 13th fewest points to wide receivers in the entire NFL. So you got to think about that from a number of perspectives, right? You think about how the Vikings offense, clearly with Dalvin Cook, is a rushing one. Yeah. Kirk Cousins has not been playing so great as of late. You got to think that the main target there, too, is Adam Thielen. On the flip side, no tight ends. I mean, Rudolph and Irv Smith Jr., they're fine real life players, but they're not going to get you any production fantasy football wise. So I do understand the question for Justin Jefferson, especially after what he did last week. I think he had a 75-yard touchdown catch. I think last week it was terrific.
7 catches.
He's a terrific player. I'm not arguing that. I think I agree with you in this specific case, though, against the Texans in a team that just doesn't throw the ball all that often. I think for those guys, for Patrick, I think I'd rather him take the chance on someone like, for me, I'd go CeeDee Lamb here, just because they're playing the Browns and so on. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, Andy, but come on. The Marquise Hollywood Brown doesn't get that many. He's fine, but it's another low volume offense. And DJ Chark coming off an injury, right? So I think I'd probably rank them in CD, Chark, Marquise, and then Justin Jefferson. But I want to get your take on that as well.
Yeah, I keep the same order. I'll flip Jefferson for Hollywood Brown because he's put up 2 consecutive weeks of single digit. You can't trust the Baltimore offense. I don't know how many different ways, if I got to learn Spanish to tell you guys about it. You can't trust him outside of Lamar Jackson. Even Lamar Jackson this week against Washington. This is the outlier, right? Yeah. This is the good week. Everybody could feast. But outside of Lamar Jackson, you cannot put any sort of pattern, consistency, or workload behind Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, or any of the running backs.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, right?
Andrews, for sure you got to start because there is that upside and the tight end position is thin. But I think I would put so many different wide receivers ahead of Hollywood Brown this week. Sure. I put Russell Gage. I put Greg Ward. I'd put Jarvis Landry. Like
Hunter Renfrow.
I'd put Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
I put Hunter freaking Renfrow above Marquise Brown,
Sure.
even against Washington, because you don't know. And Brown could go off for a massive game. But the workload is just unknown. Yeah. That's the problem.
You know how we always say, don't chase points?
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like with Marquise Hollywood Brown, I feel like we've been chasing his points since week 1 of last year.
Absolutely.
Remember when he just blew up and he was terrific and he was the hottest waiver wire and everyone's like, oh man, Lamar Jackson looks great, Marquise Hollywood Brown looks great. And then it feels like it's been an uphill climb for consistent fantasy production, I should say, from Marquise. He's obviously a very talented guy. He's a very talented player, but fantasy-wise, it's so boom or bust that I agree with you. There's a lot of other options you could go as well.
Yeah, and Lamar Jackson has not proven he can distribute the ball effectively or consistently. He hasn't. Okay, he just has not. Jefferson, the next 2 weeks after this one, getting back to Justin Jefferson real quick, those are the 2 weeks I really like. So if you want to be a little proactive, pick him up now. He's going to get single coverage compared to Adam Thielen's too. So let me see here. What do we got? I'm just going down to the questions here. Okay, Flames 04040 on YouTube. Do you really trust the Chiefs and Pats game will happen?
Ooh, that's a good one.
As of, we're going minute by minute. Adam Schefter about 12 minutes ago said it looks now that it's going to go Monday night, which is an uptick from the Tuesday spot show where
it's true.
It could have been Tuesday. This is assuming the tests as they were this morning keep coming back negative. If it's only Cam Newton, you got Brian Hoyer for your Pats. So,
yeah.
Not Jared Stidham. What happened to Jared Stidham being he's going to start? You can't beat out Brian Hoyer. Whew, if we're talking big picture, that is I think an overall downgrade for the entire team when it comes to the Patriots, right?
Yeah.
Just slash.
Do we like share some commons something or other with Brian Hoyer here? Like, I mean, he played for the Browns, played for the Destroyer, suiting up for the Browns and for the Patriots. So yeah, I don't know.
Absolutely.
I don't know, man. For the Chiefs Patriots, it's so hard. It's a good question because even though Schefter has tweeted that it's going to happen tomorrow night, I mean, look, one more positive test, and I feel like the NFL could just blow it up and say, okay, we'll play this game in week 17, or we'll play it in week 8, or we'll reschedule it. Because look at the Titans. They have I think over the course of a week or so, they have had 20 positive tests now, and now they've gotten so many positive tests that the Bills game the Titans are going to play against next week is in jeopardy now. Not even like this week's game has already been rescheduled against the Steelers, and you're looking ahead to next week. So if there is even just one more positive test for either the Chiefs or the Patriots, you got to imagine that the NFL can't take it very lightly. And we saw, I think, too, that if you're just catching up on all the COVID stuff, I think I'd seen that Tom Pelissero of NFL Network had also tweeted that tomorrow, Monday, there's going to be a league-wide meeting with GMs and coaches to discuss the possibility of not necessarily pausing the season, but at the very least discussing the protocols in place, because if they continue this way and there are more breakouts for other teams, then there will be a question of whether or not the NFL season is postponed, right?
Well,
it really feels like we're on the cusp, like we're a very important week here. It feels like for the NFL.
Yeah, it's discipline too. It's like and they're pulling all the Titans practice stuff to see if they're following protocol, and if they don't, there was talk of maybe draft picks. Like, I think you got to send a message if you're the NFL. Right. If the Titans prove to be sloppy, yank draft picks, fines all over the place to show, hey, everybody, you're going to ruin it for the league. Yeah. You're going to ruin it for everyone. And thank goodness the Vikings who played the Titans last week somehow are all testing negative for COVID. So the virus did not cross the line of scrimmage, show.
Yeah.
We got that. That is a plus.
I'd seen, Andy, that some people, I forget if it might have been Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio had tweeted this, but I think it was something like from a source in the NFL had basically said to him that most people in the NFL were treating this like a day on the golf course when you're just parring all the holes. You're getting par 3, par 4, par 3, and then now it's the hole where it's the triple bogey. This is the triple bogey hole. So it's how you respond to the triple bogey hole on the next hole is what makes or breaks your day on the golf course, right? So we'll see what the NFL does next.
I like that analogy. Yeah, boy. All right, let's get back to the questions here. Grits on YouTube. Who wins between Eagles and 49ers?
Oh.
Boy, if we're talking a straight-up winner.
I'm trying to look at
I'm going to go. Here's the thing. So you got Nick Mullins, who is serviceable, not good, right? He's not good. He's okay. You got the better quarterback in Wentz. It really comes down to attrition. I'm going to still say 49ers. I think they sort of grind it out. Like, I see this being kind of an ugly game, show. Like, what's the line on it? Do we have on 49ers there? Let me, what is it? 49ers by 9?
I like that. I like the 49ers to cover there.
Yeah, boy. You know what? I think I might take the Eagles. I think I might take the Eagles to cover that.
Really? Okay. All right.
Yeah, like
faith in Greg Ward, huh, Andy?
It's all Greg Ward. I don't see the 49ers being that dominant. Like, they're injured a lot too. Like, I don't see them being that dominant to win by that much. Yeah, I might take the Eagles to cover their 49ers outright. So I'll say that. I'll say 49ers outright. Right. It's in San Francisco. Eagles are just in a mess. They're in a free fall. They were even talking about Carson Wentz maybe being pulled.
And that's the thing, right? It's not. I hesitate to blame Philly too much because of all the injuries they faced. Like, no doubt, Carson Wentz, in addition, he has compounded a lot of these injuries by just not being great. But at the same time, I mean, for a guy who was in MVP form just a number of seasons ago, I find it hesitate to really blame him too much, just because, I mean, he can only do so much himself, right? So
yeah,
I kind of agree with you. I think I'll probably go 49ers cover the -9, and they win. They obviously win as well, just because it's at home. The defense has looked. I know you said they're banged up, for sure they are, but I think they've still been good enough that, I mean, look, how many times do we talk about how good that defensive line is, and that's what propelled them, even with the injuries. That kind of thing was what propelled them into the playoffs, right? Yeah, they're very deep. So, and on top of that, the Eagles' offensive line, even with Lane Johnson returning, is a little injured. So I think I would still pick the 49ers, but I mean, it's probably going to be a lot closer game than that's the line indicates, let's say.
Right. And like I said before, too, Deebo Samuel will play, but Kyle Shanahan said he will be eased into the line. George Kittle also returns. With that knee, that's, I don't know how 100% that's going to be as well. Yeah. So for me, if I'm looking at just from a fantasy side from 49ers, I like suiting up McKinnon and Wilson in the backfield. That might even be a bit of a, like a DraftKings stack option if you want to pop it in for one of your contests. You put that, you get two lower price, especially Wilson, running backs who have proven to be in this Shanahan system, especially in PPR, fantasy relevant, and both can be a part of the game script.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Very true. I mean, I think, Jerry McKinnon probably gets a little bit of a bump just because he is the quote unquote lead guy. But I agree with you that Kyle Shanahan has made an offense that has proven to be fantasy relevant at basically every level, right? So yeah, I agree with you. Also, probably, I mean, I know he wouldn't, if George Kittle is healthy, you start him obviously, but you got to temper perhaps expectations with George, just because, I mean, it's an injury that kept him out for a couple of weeks, and so you just whenever you have those kinds of injuries, you always have to kind of raise an eyebrow and give it a good second look, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. Steve on Facebook. Andy! Triple exclamation point. Are the Browns going to get it done? Yes!
Yes.
Well, I'm going to believe yes. But if I'm trying to be, objective for our viewers here, show, okay?
Okay.
I would say that the line is actually pretty close at 3.5 for the Cowboys. Like, that's getting into pick'em territory, which I think is interesting. I think there is certainly a road map for the Browns to win, but ultimately I feel that they fall just a bit short, that the Dallas offense is just a bit too much, but they look good. Like, I think Baker balls out, and I think it's a nice, fun back and forth, but that Dallas pulls it out in the end.
I'd probably lean more Dallas winning as well. If only because think about it like this too, Andy, right? Like, just beyond the fantasy implications for a half a second, I feel like with Dallas, they are one of those teams, like, look at that, the rest of that division, right? They're 1-2. Washington is 1-2. The Eagles are 0-2-1 with that tie with the Bengals, and the Giants are winless. They're 0-3. Now, the Giants are playing the Rams this week, probably going to go 0-4. Even if the Eagles did win against the 49ers, which we just talked about, they're still going to be 1-2-1. And if they lose, they'll still be winless. You look at Washington, they're playing a Ravens team that, kind of has to bounce back because they just got trumped on national television by Mahomes and the Chiefs. So if they lose again to the Ravens, they'll be 1-3. So I feel like in a very weak division, the Cowboys, I don't want to say it's a must win because they'll probably win this division anyways, but they basically, like, they have to win against teams like the Browns. You know what I mean? Like, they've lost very narrowly to the Seahawks. They lost very narrowly to the Rams. They have to win against teams like the Browns. And if they don't, I mean, it's a sign of much, much worse things to come. So I'm gonna go out and pick the Cowboys. That -3.5, I'm gonna say they cover and win as well.
Well, it's a case too where doesn't this NFC East just scream like 8-8 is winning that division?
Yeah.
Like just a dirty
Mm.
slog. But the offense is there, right? Like the Dallas off passing attack has the most yards per game in the NFL. Their
Yep.
defense overall is ranked 26th. In fantasy, they've given up the third most fantasy points to quarterbacks.
Yep.
So that's why I picked Baker Mayfield as one of my sleeper picks this week as far as an opportunity to go off a guy who hasn't done it all year because they're leaning on the run. He might be forced to
Right.
this week. Injury note as well. Kareem Hunt is expected to play. He is still listed as questionable, but is expected to play, according to Ian Rappaport of NFL Network. If that's the case, I think you pop him in as one of the pass catchers because
Right.
it has shown that there's enough ball for both Chubb and for Hunt there.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely agreed. They clearly run the ball a whole ton. I think they run the ball on almost, I think it was something like on the 190 snaps, they run the ball on 96 of those snaps, and they've thrown the ball to the running backs on something like an additional 16 snaps. So they
Yeah.
clearly involve the running backs. So we'll see how much Baker Mayfield is involved in the Browns offense today in terms of him actually throwing the ball, not just handing it off.
If my own personal Madden simulation has any stake in this show, I played it earlier in the week. I had
Okay.
the Browns winning 22-10.
Wow. Okay. Well, we'll have to
For what
call
that is,
fantasy odds to tell them to use that. Use your final there.
for
26.
what that is. By the way, I'm taking the over on the 56 points of that game. I think that's I think
Okay.
we could see a nice like 35-30 type of matchup there
Sure.
potentially. So anyway, all right, let's move on. If it goes 22-10, then the Madden helped. It was good. Let's see. Flame on YouTube, Kareem Hunt or Mike Davis? So the Kareem Hunt question, back to relevancy there. He will play. Got to go Mike Davis. Like, show they're just rolling him, targeting him. He's the perfect Teddy Bridgewater type of weapon to go with Christian McCaffrey. Just keep giving him the short little passes. I think you got to go Davis, especially if it's PPR.
Yeah, they have thrown the ball his way. Let's put it this way: since he has come in from McCaffrey, they have thrown the ball at him 17 times, and he has caught the ball 16 times. So they clearly are using him in
That's
PPR.
good.
If this is a PPR league, he is much more valuable. I think I see a question a little further down from Jackson on YouTube: Mixon or Mike Davis PPR? And I mean, in PPR, Mixon is injured, and Mike Davis as well. I just saw it, and I thought to myself, man, like I feel like there are this week especially. I feel like, Andy, there are very few running backs I wouldn't take over, or I would take over Mike Davis, pardon me, because he has been used in basically the same way they use Christian McCaffrey, right? So as long as they keep doing that, you keep rolling him out, and the Cardinals defense has been a little more stingy, perhaps, but I think this is a week they might come back down to earth a little bit.
And this is what we have to remember. And by the way, Joe Mixon is going to play today.
Yes.
He has been cleared. He's been awful. Partly his fault, partly the Cincinnati offensive line. That's a easy gimme. You go Mike Davis there. But we have to think about it too, Show. When you get a playmaking running back who catches the ball like a Mike Davis here,
right,
against a good defense, like a sneaky good pass rush, that turns up the value of that running back even more, because if Teddy Bridgewater's under pressure, what's he going to do? Throw the ball to Davis, right? He's just going to fall back. Okay, he's going to rightly. It's going to be the short, little, quick pass.
Yeah, I agree. I agreed. Yeah, I mean, look, you and I talked a little bit about on the radio show earlier today about DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, and how the splits there are perhaps more even than you would have imagined going into the season, right? And obviously that changes a little bit with McCaffrey out. No one could have predicted that. Right. But at the same time, yeah, they've been using all three of those guys, and especially run game, they've been using Mike Davis in a very efficient way, but they clearly like the guy, and they're clearly leaning on him. Teddy Bridgewater is clearly leaning on him. So look, until that changes, you got to use Mike Davis as much as possible, because also you very likely spent a whole ton of, almost swore there, a whole ton of waiver wire dollars on someone like Mike Davis.
I did. I spent 51. I was a Christian McCaffrey on 51 auction dollars. I was like, I need him.
Yeah.
And I got him. And he's been playing good. So, you're going to play Mike Davis until further notice.
Exactly.
Al on YouTube, Russell Gage or Darius Slayton, half-point PPR. Slayton, the lead dog now with the Giants.
Yep.
That doesn't mean a whole lot. You can be the lead dog, doesn't mean you're getting fed. Yeah. I'm still going Russell Gage, even though Russell Gage is the third option, because like we talked about earlier, Julio, as always, some sort of injury, banged up. Ridley, even more so. Even when they play, even when all three were in there, before Gage went out with concussions, like, this dude's getting high teens to low 20s fantasy points, targets, double-digit targets with those other two. I'd feel more comfortable with Gage, even though Slayton is probably, when it comes to wide receivers, get the most target share.
I think I'd go with Gage as well, if only because with Darius Slayton, they're playing the Rams this week. And I think the Rams, first of all, the Rams have been playing such great football this season. They've been a lot more fun to watch, especially compared to 2019, right? So they've been great. Jared Goff has been great. Everyone on the offense has been great, certainly. And the defense, yeah, okay, I get it. They still lost and gave up 35 points to the Bills last week. So I understand, but at the same time, I think the options next to Darius Slayton are not as inspiring as some of the options that the rest of the teams the Rams have faced will be, right? So with no Barkley, with no Sterling Shepard, people like Jalen Ramsey and other players on that Rams defense can focus in on Slayton and Evan Ingram. Like, for example, we're going to talk about our survivor picks later, and I feel like one of the most overwhelming survivor picks you could go for this week are the Rams, right? Like the Rams are locked in. They're at home. The Giants are on the road. Giants are banged up. They're just a bad football team in general from top to bottom. Daniel Jones not getting a lot of help. So I just in general would probably pick against the Giants in most situations, basically.
I totally agree with you there. I was just looking, we got a Twitter question from at Molnar Steven on Twitter. Great. Do I start Wilson Jr.? So Jeff Wilson Jr. Of the 49ers. Now, again, any sort of help you guys can give us in the sense of what type of league, maybe what your other choices are.
Sure.
If we're looking straight up and you're affected by no Steelers and Titans game and you're hesitant on the Chiefs-Pats game and all that, I feel confident that Wilson Jr., as we've seen the last couple weeks, when it's him and McKinnon, that there's enough ball to go around and he could produce. Okay, I don't think he has necessarily the ceiling of a McKinnon, but he's going to be serviceable enough. Like for me, if I'm looking at somebody to pop into a flex, let's say, if they get me double-digit fantasy points, even if it's like 11, I feel like that is some sort of a success.
In a PPR league.
In a PPR. Yeah, at least then that is some sort of success. You've hit the double digits. They didn't hurt you.
Who was the other guy other than Jeff Wilson?
He just said straight up. He just said Jeff Wilson.
Oh, okay. Should I start Jeff Wilson? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, like you said, it's always kind of depends on
other
whoever else you got. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I would like there are worse players, especially in a week where things are a little more uncertain COVID-wise, a lot of injuries so far to top players this year. So with all of those options, I feel like that's probably why people will be starting guys like Jeff Wilson. And if that's the case, then yeah, I think you can feel, at least for this week against a banged-up Eagles squad, you can feel okay about it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's see. Cliff on Facebook. DJ or Mixon? I'm going to go DJ more because Mixon just hasn't gotten it done, man.
Yeah.
Like he's single-digit stuff again. Like Joe Burrow's been great fantasy-wise. Mm-hmm. But Mixon, he's just, the gameplay doesn't necessarily work in his favor. They have wide receiver options they can throw to if they get down. Is Mixon going to be used out of the backfield more? Until we see it, it's just guessing at this point. And I think he's more suffering from the slightly better than last year, but that was one of the all-time worst offensive lines in the last decade. He's suffering from that. So I would say, if you like what we say, if you got Mixon and you don't have any other option, at least he's going to start.
Our producer's saying it's David Johnson, not DJ Moore.
Oh, it said DJ. Oh. Put the names, people. Okay, it's like we said on the fans. Hey, do I start Jones, or Smith? Tell us which one.
yeah, please.
All right,
please do.
Okay, so if it's DJ, I'd still go David Johnson.
Okay, all right.
If it's again depends if it's PPR especially. If it's standard, I might lean Mixon, but if it's PPR, I'll go David Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Bengals are playing the Jaguars this week. We know the Jaguars are not good, not a very good team from top to bottom, basically. So I feel like you can probably feel okay starting most players against the Jacksonville defense, but at the same time, like you said, the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line is probably one of the worst in football because of the COVID opt-outs, because of injuries, just because of general talent level. I think it's something like they are the fourth worst pass blocking offensive line in the entire NFL, and just slightly better than that on run blocking, and which is obviously why Joe Burrow has been running for his life back there, and Joe Mixon has been not so great either. So I would probably lean, especially if it was a half or a full point PPR league, I'd probably lean David Johnson DJ. But it's closer. than DJ, for example. DJ Moore, for example.
The only DJ I would replace for Mixon is Duke Johnson, who's on the IR. That's the only DJ.
Yes.
I don't think there's any other DJ I know. If there is.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Patrick on Facebook, Kittle coming off of injury or Mike Gesicki? You know we love our Gesicki here on the show. Yep. We love our Gesicki. But with George Kittle, even if it's with the knee, you got to play him, man. I think if you got Kittle, you got to put him in. Even with Nick Mullins in there, is it ideal? No. Is there a path for Mike Gesicki to have a big day? Absolutely. Against the Seahawks, who just get into shootouts and give up a ton of points? Yes. But Kittle's pedigree, even coming off of injury, I gotta go with him.
Yeah, that's a lot tougher one for me, honestly, because like you said, the mantra of fantasy is always start your studs, right? Yeah. And a lot of people say it to themselves in their sleep if you're a fantasy owner, and I totally understand that because Kittle, you drafted him highly. He's probably at worst the second best tight end, and more often than not, he is the best tight end when Travis Kelce's having off days. But Patrick, yeah, he's asking because Kittle is injured. You know what, Andy? I might lean this week. I might lean Gesicki because the Seahawks have, I think, 3 defensive backs out, including Jamal Adams, their star-studded safety. And on the other side, they also have Bruce Irvin, their linebackers, also done for the year as well. And this is a defense that, with those guys, was already bad, right? Like it was bad already, and now they've lost like 4 players on defense. I feel like in a game, and I know you like to say, wave the Fitzmagic wand.
Wave it.
I know you love that saying. I feel like with Gesicki being one of Fitzpatrick's favorite targets, I think he commands like a ridiculous 76% target share of that Miami offense. So I like Mike Gesicki this week. I do.
Gesicki over Kittle, says Show. I say go with Kittle, but yeah, you know what? It's a case where both are lined up for probably good.
That's the thing. Yeah,
which is a nice situation. It's always nice when your choice you shouldn't miss either way.
Yeah,
that's always a nice bonus. Tiger on YouTube, start Chark or Cup PPR. Now, here's an interesting stat when it comes to the Jacksonville Jaguars with DJ Chark versus the Bengals. The Bengals, despite how bad they are, despite how broken their defense is, they've given up the second fewest fantasy points to wide receivers this year. Now, who would have thought that, right? And you have DJ Chark coming off a game that he missed. Looks like he's healed up from that chest injury. And then we look to Cooper Kupp. That Rams offense is humming. Yep. Kupp was a stud last week, as is Woods. I think I'm going Cooper Kupp, especially in PPR. That's his specialty.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp as well. I think we've basically been shown that Cooper and Robert Woods can coexist. They can coexist. I think they're both probably WR2s this week, probably. But I mean, look, I just talked up the Rams because the Giants are not great. That whole defense is not great. So I think you can feel good about starting basically anyone on the Rams offense, essentially, against the Giants, as crazy as that is to say. But yeah, I mean, Robert Woods and Kupp are the kind of co-WR1s in Los Angeles. And I think, DJ Chark injured and coming back from injury, I should say, and an up and down Jacksonville offense that also has a newfound RB1 in James Robinson. Yeah. They like to run the ball there a little more too now. So if that's the case, they might lean on that to help Gardner Minshew out in real life. So if that ends up being the case, then I think you might have a better chance for more success with Cooper Kupp, especially in PPR.
Exactly. Keep the questions coming. Comment section below on Twitter at AndyMC81 at SNSLE. You are watching Fantasy Football live on Sportsnet, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. All right, let's see. Crown on YouTube. Start Singletary or Hunt at flex. Now, Zach Moss looks like he should be playing. He'll be limited. Boy, that running game for Buffalo, as exciting as that offense has been, Show, as long as Hunt, and we're told to track it. Now, he's going to play, it's said, but track that 90-minute report beforehand just to make sure with the groin injury. If Hunt's cleared, you go with Kareem Hunt, in my opinion, because the shootout possibilities with Dallas. Vegas is a plus opponent also, but I'm not sold on the Buffalo running game.
Yeah, they've shockingly struggled to get the run game going, obviously outside of Josh Allen's legs himself, right? But with Devin Singletary, yeah, I mean, he had a chance last week and weeks before without Zach Moss, with him struggling and then the turf toe injury. They had a real chance to have Devin Singletary be a lot better than I think he ended up being. And I mean, look, it's been this Josh Allen show in Buffalo so far. I see no reason for that to change. because clearly they are very confident with him slinging that ball up and down the field. So if that's the case, right, then I think Devin Singletary probably this week is a low end RB2. And if Kareem
Yeah.
Hunt plays, just because of how they use him, they throw the ball to their running backs, as I mentioned before. If he is healthy, you play. But obviously, if he is banged up and he doesn't play, you're stuck with Devin Singletary. But if both are healthy, I would agree that the Cowboys defense is more susceptible. So you go with Kareem Hunt in that matchup. But yeah, until I see, you know me, I say this all the time, right? I want to see more. I want to see more from these guys, and Devin Singletary needs to see more first. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we need to build. You need to stack performances. Now, the Raiders defense has given up the most fantasy points to running backs this season, just as a side note for you there. But I think, Hunt is the right play if he is healthy.
Yeah. That was probably helped a little bit in part by like that 3 touchdown day from Rex Burkhead last week, though, right? I'm not saying that you discount that, right? Because you can't because those touchdowns happened.
Sure.
But at the same time, I mean, like the Patriots, in terms
Absolutely.
of how they have morphed into that offense is on a complete 160, right, or 180. It's just completely on its head. The guys, they run the ball a lot. Sonny Michel, Rex Burkhead, James White is out obviously, but he's involved in there as well. So when he is active, so yeah, it's just I feel like that skews it a little bit this early in the season at the very least.
That's a great point. That's why you watch. Why was it one big game, whatever? But Hunt over Singletary, says we. Sam Gaming on YouTube. Trust Chris Carson.
Okay.
Now, I'm in this situation with you, Sam Gaming. Okay, I got Chris Carson in one of my leagues. So I've been tracking it all week. Says he's going to play. Okay, now Carlos Hyde, top backup, less likely to play or be limited. Yes, I think you got to go Chris Carson again. If you're like me, you took him pretty high. Do you have a better replacement? Probably not. So I would say again, you track the health up into the 90-minute mark before the game. If he's good to go, and earlier this morning it said he is, you play Chris Carson. Somebody I do like for DraftKings contests, though, Shoaib.
There we go. I like it.
I love Travis Homer. I think Travis Homer has a path in this game to showcase himself as the pass catcher if Carson gets banged up or just as a little bit of change of pace. Travis Homer is somebody I think is ready to pop and maybe has a good matchup this week for Seattle.
Do you have his Travis Homer's DFS value? I forget what it was.
Oh, you know what? He was cheap. I think he was like 3,700.
Okay, you looked that up. I think for me, it was 4,000 even.
4,000 even against Miami. Okay. Yeah.
All right, that's not too bad as a contrarian play, a value play. Certainly, you're always looking for kind of found value in those DFS lineups. But I do agree with you. If Carson plays, you have to play him because this could be a very high scoring matchup. I mean, we already talked about the injuries on the Seattle side of things, and I mean Miami already a porous defense as well. Just even with all their guys there, right? So
yeah,
you got to think about that. You also got to think about how Seattle and Russell Wilson uses their running backs, right? They throw to the running backs a lot, and Chris Carson has actually caught a number of touchdown passes. So they clearly like involving him in the passing game, and that's with people like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf being involved there as well, right? So if that's the case, I would feel okay with Chris Carson. I think a lot of the reports initially after that whole that alligator roll thing against the
that was Cowboys, a dirty. That was
dirty. Yeah, you can't have that in the NFL, right? I mean, he clearly was trying to injure the guy, but it's good that Chris Carson managed to avoid any serious injury, and it was trending upwards for him basically all week, essentially, right? Yeah. So if he plays, I think you feel good and play him.
Yeah, Carson reports from Adam Schefter again, not that long ago, said that Pete Carroll said Carson looked good in practice on Thursday and Friday and is expected to handle his normal workload.
There you go. Okay.
So there you have it, and hopefully there's no injury there. Let's see. Jackson on YouTube, Mixon or Mike Davis, PPR. We talked about that one before. We said Mike Davis, DeAndre Hopkins, or Calvin Ridley, standard. Ooh. This coming from Harris on YouTube. Now, both Hopkins and Ridley have injury designations going into the week.
Right.
Show for me, again, when it comes down to two talented receivers, I think who's going to get the most targets? Who is first in line? Who's higher on the pecking order when it comes to the quarterback and who they look to first? That's DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah. He, I want to say through the first couple of weeks, he has commanded 37 targets. through 3 games, 37 targets, and he has turned that into, I have the stats here, 32 catches, 356 yards, and a touchdown. And I had seen
amazing.
yesterday, again, you can't really rely on this too much, but if you follow DeAndre Hopkins on Twitter, he posted a GIF of himself, just kind of like, it was, and the reaction, it was a reaction GIF, and it was something like, am I going to play tomorrow? And it's a picture of himself like rubbing his hands and going like that.
I saw that.
That was pretty great. Again, you can't lean too much into that, obviously, because they're going to do what's best for the player. But still, I mean, he clearly is confident that he'll play. And I mean, he will play. And if he does play, I feel like it's hard, even for Calvin Ridley, I feel like it's hard to go against DeAndre Hopkins.
Right. And this just happened recently, actually. The designation has been removed, the injury designation from Hopkins.
Okay.
So should play. Christian Kirk also expected to be back, but in more of a limited form. So if you're an Andy Isabella owner or you popped him into your DraftKings lineup last week, fade on him. And for Ridley, like show from Friday's practice, I think it was, they showed video where Julio and Ridley both had the kind of ankle injuries. Julio was looking explosive. Right. Ridley, a little bit hobbled. So that's another thing. Hopkins looks to be much more ready to go, where Ridley, even if he does play, could be held back a little bit.
I mean, you and I are fans of Calvin Ridley. It's not a knock on Calvin Ridley.
No.
It's just that I think, if he's a little banged up, you gotta. And if he's banged up and you have an elite wide receiver option on the other end, it's a kind of a no-brainer there, you know.
Yeah, all things being equal, I would take Hopkins anyway.
Exactly.
I'd take Hopkins anyway there.
Yeah.
Let's see, Gary Dougherty Jr., Burkhead or Kerryon Johnson. Oh. Yeah. Oh, why?
Your reaction.
Oh, you know what? I guess Burkhead, because I hate Kerryon Johnson and that whole back. I don't hate the man Kerryon Johnson.
Right.
I hate the situation that Matt Patricia has put Johnson and Swift in by adding Peterson, who says he wants to play 5 more years. So, he's going to ruin somebody's fantasy backfield for 5 more years till he's 40 years old.
He's going to join the Browns next year, Andy.
God. He will. That'll do it. That's a perfect ad. You're right. But in this case, while I do not trust Burkhead, I've said do not be a sucker and chase Rex Burkhead. If you're looking, Brian Hoyer's playing. They're going to have to hand off the ball. Do I like the possible upside of Burkhead more than Johnson this week? Yes, and only in this scenario. Only in this scenario, I'll say Rex Burkhead.
I think I'd seen that the Lions offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevell, has basically said that he wants to keep the ball in the hands of Adrian Peterson, which is bad news if you're an owner of DeAndre Swift. It's a bad news if you're an owner of Kerryon, certainly. And so if that's the case, and then on the flip side, they're playing a team this week that has a pretty stout rush defense anyways, right? So all of those things basically combine to say, don't start Lions running backs. Now, again, I know what you're saying about Rex Burkhead. Heavens knows I've seen it over the course of these past several years.
Yes.
That it doesn't matter. They'll mix in whoever they want at running back. But like you said, no, if the game is played tomorrow, and again, I still have some lingering doubts that the game will be played on Monday, but either way, if it is played tomorrow and you need to start a running back there, you could do worse than Rex Burkhead, because I believe James White probably, even if he does play, and I don't think he is going to play, but even if he does play, I think he's not going to be involved to the full extent anyways. And on top, so that means that basically leaves Sony Michel and Rex Burkhead. So it's with no Cam Newton to steal some rushing yards there. It's not as messy as it usually is, but that's going to be like you said. That's for this week only.
For this week only. With the lines of Adrian Peterson show, it is limited, like the whole trio, to like single digit fantasy points.
Yeah.
Like 9 or less all the time, unless one flukes out a touchdown.
No, it's true.
I hate it. I hate it so much. It's terrible.
You can just get ready to buy your AP Browns jersey next year.
Oh, I hope not. Oh gosh. All right. Let's see. Josh Masis on YouTube. Marvin Jones or Ward from the Eagles? You know which way I'm going.
Yeah.
Give the keys to the Warden, baby. Greg Ward. Lock him up. Let's go. Lock him into your lineup. Greg Ward.
Yeah, that's a good one,
man. Like Josh, like a show, like I said, Marvin Jones. Okay. You got Kenny Galladay back. You got TJ Hawkinson. The running backs, forget it.
Yep.
You got those options. For Philly, it's Ertz, it's Sanders, it's Ward. You're done. That's it.
Yeah. Look, Galladay is back. We already saw last week how that siphons targets from him, and they're playing it. Look, like the Saints do have injuries on defense. They do, right? So I think there is some value in Marvin Jones, but considering that Kenny Galladay and T.J. Hawkinson are going to siphon targets, Matt Stafford does like to distribute the ball. But considering Greg Ward is the guy basically right now after Zach Ertz, certainly, I think there's probably I think maybe the best way of saying it, Andy, is that perhaps the floor for Marvin Jones is higher, but I think the ceiling for Greg Ward is higher here.
I dig it. I would go with that. And the thing is, too, this isn't just a body coming in. Greg Ward, 20 plus fantasy points last week. And more importantly to me, is last year in the same type of situation when the Eagles wide receivers were decimated with injuries. He came in and he balled out for a couple games as well.
Right.
So he's done it. He's done it before. No reason to think he won't do it again. Cameron is asking Josh Allen or Dak. Oh,
that's a good problem to have.
You're good, man. You're good either way. Like I'm feeling probably Josh Allen because you get a little bit more out of the legs against the Raiders. That's in Vegas, but versus the Browns secondary for Dak Prescott, both are good. Pick who you like. I'll go with Josh Allen, but you're going to be just fine either way.
Yeah, that's a good one. The next person too is another similar question: Josh Allen or Kyler Murray, right? So for Cameron, those are three great quarterbacks, right? Allen, Dak, and Kyler. But I think for Cameron, I'm going to say Josh Allen as well. It's hard to pick against how good Josh Allen has been this year in particular. He is a dark horse for MVP at this point, which is wild to say, right? I'm sure Bills fans everywhere rejoice at hearing those words. And I think, you know what? I think, again, for David on YouTube, again, Josh Allen or Kyler Murray, I feel like I will go and say Kyler Murray here because even with the 3 picks last week, he still had an amazing fantasy day. And now they're playing a Carolina Panthers defense that hasn't really been able to stop a nosebleed this year, right? So I'm gonna go and pick Kyler for the second one. But I mean, look, if you want to go with Josh Allen, hey, no, I'm not going to argue with you.
No, and you're right. Even with the 3 interceptions, the 2 touchdowns, he still had 24.7 fantasy points with Kyler Murray. Now Carolina's defense. You're right. And it's weird when it comes to real life versus fantasy based on fantasy points. Because you're absolutely right. They haven't been able to stop much of the Panthers. But in fantasy, they've given up the 3rd fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks.
Right.
Now, does Kyler Murray, can you get around that? I think so. So again, I'm with you. I think you're in a good situation. I would also lean with Josh Allen in this particular situation.
Real quick, Andy, I feel like, remember how I mentioned before how for the Raiders, their defensive stats were skewed by one big day from Rex Burkhead. I feel like on the flip side for the Panthers, because they haven't really faced a lot of punishing fantasy quarterbacks yet, I feel like that also skews it towards a lot rougher for fantasy quarterbacks. But when you have a stud like Kyler or Josh Allen, you start them, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we're only 3 weeks in, right?
Exactly. That's the thing.
That's a great point. That's what you got to keep in mind. Darson Patel on YouTube, Greg Ward or Justin Jefferson? Greg Ward.
Yeah.
He's good. Again, you got to look at, folks, opportunity equals success. That's what we always say on the show. Opportunity equals success. Who's going to have more opportunity? Greg Ward's going to have more opportunity because when Carson Wentz has to throw to a wide receiver, he's it. He's the only one there. Whereas for Justin Jefferson, like we talked about, not necessarily this week against Houston, but the next 2 matchups are real juicy. He sees single coverage compared to Adam Thielen's double, but he's going to get what that equates to is Adam Thielen likely seeing more work, more targets.
For sure.
So Jefferson, longer term, I like. This week, Greg Ward for sure, yeah?
Yeah, I think I feel like we're very high on Greg Ward this week, Andy. We're selling the Greg Ward share to everyone. We're spreading the gospel of Greg Ward.
Ward. Ward, get it on there. The Warden. Come on.
The Warden, right.
Lock him up. All right. Jason on Facebook. CeeDee Lamb, Hollywood Brown, or Adam Thielen, standard league. So we talked about Hollywood Brown, cutting him out.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Thielen or CeeDee Lamb? I might lean Thielen.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, I think, although I like the shootout potential again in Dallas, the options on offense are so great in Dallas.
Right.
It could be Amari Cooper's day. Gallup could overtake Lamb. Dalton Schultz, Ezekiel Elliott. When you look at the Vikings, it's Dalvin Cook. And then last week it was Justin Jefferson, but that was the first time. So I'll go Adam Thielen.
Yeah, I think I have a soft spot for Adam Thielen because I think he has been very like since he broke out essentially 2 years ago. I feel like he has been very consistent, right? He has been one
Yeah.
of the more consistent receivers, even like with Stephon Diggs for the Vikings, and even since Stephon Diggs has departed, certainly for greener pastures it looks like in Buffalo. But
Yeah.
yeah, I do genuinely think that Adam Thielen. Is probably like as the number one receiver. I think he's primed for just a more consistent output. I do think that perhaps the ceiling for CD against the Browns is a little higher. And I mean, you and I are both very high on CD just in general, even dating
Yeah.
back to the NFL draft, basically, right?
Oh
But
yeah, my top guy.
yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I think for this week, I think I'd prefer. Even though the Texans do give up the 13th fewest points to wide receivers, I do think I'll go with Adam Thielen as well. It's closer than I definitely thought it would be in my mind, like as I was thinking about it while we were reading the question. But yeah, I'll go with Adam Thielen.
Yeah. So if we rank him, Thielen, Lamb, and Brown.
Brown, yeah.
Josh on YouTube. Good morning, guys. Should I go with Jared Goff or Aaron Rodgers? And should I play Russell Gage or Mark Ingram at flex
All right.
half PPR? Let's start with the quarterback. Who would have thought last year would have been a laugher of course, Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers. What's wrong with you? For Jared Goff, boy, man, he's been balling out.
He's been great.
Right? It makes it for a much more difficult question. I'm still going to go Aaron Rodgers. I think that the upside possibilities of just airing it out against the Falcons is greater. So I'm going to say Aaron Rodgers, but I think either way, you're going to be good this week.
I think so too. Like, it's funny, right? Because both Jared Goff and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, certainly if you look back to last year's version of Aaron Rodgers, I guess last year's version of Jared Goff too, actually, were both pretty underwhelming. But this year they have both been balling out, and I think it's a much closer name value. You would obviously go with Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers regardless. With like you, Andy, this week either way because I think the Falcons defense, like we have seen, has just been absolutely abysmal this year. But yeah, I mean, if you decide to go with Jared Goff against an equally abysmal Giants defense, I think you'll be okay.
I think you're good. But yeah, Aaron Rodgers. I would like to see maybe another couple weeks out of Jared Goff to really make me confident.
Yeah.
But still, I'm totally fine with that.
And what was the other half of it? It was Gage or Ingram.
Oh yeah, second. Yes, good catch there. I'll go Gage. Because you can't trust Ingram, guys. You can't trust him. Okay, look at the stats. Look at the fantasy points. Look at the production. The full 3 weeks of this season. Ingram 1 week, then nothing. Dobbins before that. Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews.
Yeah,
it's a rotate. You cannot predict it. We hate unpredictability in fantasy football. You don't want it. Russell Gage, what I know, he got knocked out with a concussion last week, but he's been cleared a couple days of it. When he's healthy, that dude's getting 9 to 12 targets a game with Julio and Calvin Ridley on the field. I'm going Gage.
Yeah, I feel like I would take Mark Ingram in not very many situations, frankly. No. So yeah, I'm going Gage as well.
Yeah, and I don't care what format. I would take. I'm taking Gage today. I don't.
Yeah,
and the thing is, Mark Ingram could go off, but you don't know. Harbaugh said, and he's delivered on his promise. How often do we say coaches lie? Harbaugh has told the truth. He said he's going to rotate 3-4 running backs all year. And you got Lamar who likes to run it.
Yeah. I feel like it's just such a volatile situation for the running backs that I feel like I would feel bad counseling anyone to take any of the Ravens running backs because sure, it's possible they pop. It obviously will always be possible, but it's such a dart throw that I feel like you might as well just do that and guess essentially.
Yeah. Now this is a good question coming. Mikey Soccer on YouTube. Should I start Mixon or Gaskin? Please help. We got you, Mikey Soccer. We got you, buddy. We got you. I'm going to say, who would have thought? Myles Gaskin.
Oh.
I'm going Gaskin over Mixon. Because, again, look at what has happened so far this year. Mixon has 1 double-digit fantasy day, 2 single-digit. Gaskin's getting the work, man. We thought it was going to be Jordan Howard and Matt Breida.
Yeah.
All Howard's good for is stealing, is vulturing a goal line touchdown.
Yeah, gosh. No, it doesn't really matter where Jordan Howard is. He vultures, apparently, right? But Myles Gaskin has been surprisingly dependable, especially in PPR leagues. I don't know what it is for Mikey here, but if it is PPR, I would lean more towards Gaskin because I think he is going to be, as the season goes on, Andy, I genuinely think that Gaskin will be more of a guy we get asked about. So, yeah, I like Gaskin, but still I think there is some volatility there because I mean maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick runs it himself. Maybe they don't. Maybe they don't give him as many carries or touches in general from scrimmage, right? So I think that is a very close one. I'll go Mixon by the slimmest of margins, but I think that if you decide to go Gaskin, especially again half or full point PPR, I think it'll be okay.
Well, and Seattle's given up the 8th fewest fantasy points to running backs.
That's the thing. Yeah.
I feel for Gaskin, he to me is sort of like, if you compare him and Josh Kelly ceiling wise, he's sort of like a Josh Kelly plus because he's getting starter reps compared to Kelly going in.
And they throw him the ball too, right?
They throw him the ball too. He's going to be that high floor guy, right? Get you 13 to 15 fantasy, but you're feeling good. Not going to blow you away with a 25-point game, but he's not going to cost you. So I think Gaskin is good. Let's see. Gary is asking Nick Chubb, Sanders, and Carson, who sits? Ooh,
that's tough. Yeah, that's tough. I feel like you have to start Chubb.
Chubb. He's been a beast. Yeah. Myles Sanders has been awesome. Chris Carson with the injury in Seattle. Again, it has come out that Chris Carson is going to get a full workload.
Yep.
But being the little bit nervous that I am, and with how injury, again, we'll use that word, ravaged. It's a powerful word with Philly. Sanders is going to get a lot of opportunities. I'm going to sit Carson, slimmest of margins, because of he is coming off of that injury and that there's so few other choices for Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's a great trio of running backs for sure. Yeah. I think for Gary, but I think I have Myles Sanders in a league as well, and he has carried an injury designation tag virtually all week. But I think there is no question. I think in terms of seeing other reporters, the beat writers for Philly and stuff, reporting on this, I don't think there's any question that Sanders is going to suit up tonight. So I think I would probably agree with you and go Nick Chubb and Myles Sanders.
All right, let's zip through a couple of these ones as we're running out of time. Giuseppe on Facebook, pick 2, Greg Ward, Golden Tate, or Ayuk, PPR. Give me Greg Ward and Ayuk. Deebo Samuel is going to be eased back in, even though he's healthy, won't get a full workload today. So I'll go with those two.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Greg Ward and Ayuk as well, especially in PPR. Golden Tate, look, he's not bad by any means, but that Giants, everything about it screams stay away from basically at every level. I know there is some room to work with now that Sterling Shepard is out, but at the same time, I think it's so much more of, I like to use the word volatile. That's my word of the day today, volatile. Yeah. But I just think that it's probably going to get a little more consistency from Greg Ward and from, I mean, it's crazy to say Brandon Ayuk, but probably him too.
As the rookie, right? With players easing back in. Josh on YouTube, Devontae Adams being a game time decision for tomorrow night. Should I risk starting him? Again, Josh, it depends on if you can tell us who your other choices are. If Devontae Adams plays, you got to start him. It is a bit of a risk, though.
That is tough, though. Yeah, that's tough.
Now, he is trending to play. Yeah. Latest reports say they're being cautious. He is trending to play. So he should, but it really depends on your other options. If you got somebody else that is decent, maybe you play it a little safe, but boy, I would find it tough for you to have too many better options than Devontae Adams on your roster right now.
That's true. Maybe as a backup option, if Devontae can't go and you have someone on your bench you can drop, maybe you can pick up with no Allen Lazard. Maybe you can pick up Marquez Valdez-Scantling, like on a moment's notice if you do end up benching another guy who you could have used in his spot. So maybe that's a good backup option there.
Yeah, and if he's gone for a flex, Robert Tonyan, the tight end, has been projected upwards as well.
Right.
Trey Gets Buckets asks, I like that name, is Russell Gage a good flex over Marquise Brown? I have Mike Evans and Amari Cooper starting 12-man PPR. Yep, Russell Gage all day over Marquise Brown. Trey, yeah, I'm doing that. You agree, Show?
I agree. Yeah, that's a great trio. Evans, Amari Cooper, nice. And Russell Gage. I like it.
Yeah, go Gage. Braden, Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, Joe Mixon, Darrell Henderson, Myles Gaskin. Pick 3, please, and thank you. Who do you like out of that bunch, Show? Drake, Sanders, Mixon, Henderson, Gaskin. I'm going to wipe off Mixon.
Yeah, I'm going to wipe Mixon off too. I'm going to say Drake, Sanders, and Henderson.
You know what? I'll go Sanders, Henderson, Gaskin. Drake's got to prove it to me a little bit more.
Sure, okay.
I love Kenyon Drake. I love the upside Kenyon Drake. I do. But, we got.
I think this is going to be one of those weeks, Andy. If Kenyon Drake doesn't produce, I have him in a couple leagues. If he doesn't produce, I think I'm going to have to permanently downgrade until we see a little more from him. But this is the last chance for him.
Last chance. All right, let's get our survivor pool pick in real quick, then we'll wrap it up. Show. Who do you got for your survivor pool?
Yeah, so I got two here. I think I'm alive in both of my pools, which is great. So I got the Ravens over Washington, and I got the Rams, as I mentioned before, over the Giants. And really quickly, Andy, I got some best bets here.
Oh,
I saw this on covers.com. I like these two. Allen Robinson over 63 and a half receiving yards. It's a minus 120 with, I think, Nick Foles in there, even with against a tough Colts defense. Nick Foles is there, so that'll be good for Allen Robinson.
I'll take that.
And Russell Wilson over 2.5 passing touchdowns. At the time, it was plus 140. You have to check to see if that line has moved because I feel like it might have. But if it hasn't, hey, you get Russell Wilson over 2.5 passing touchdowns with what he has done this year. I think that's terrific.
His 14-1 touchdown
Yeah.
interception ratio. You gotta love that. I like it. For survivor pool pick, Jaguars, Bengals. I feel when two bad teams play each other, it's a good chance to maybe try to get one of those out of your way for that. So I'm gonna say Cincinnati Bengals at home. Give me the Bengals, Joe Burrow at home over the Jaguars. First win. I think for a survivor pool, if you want to be if you've used up some of the good teams, whatever, this might be a good opportunity with the Jaguars, reminding us last week that they are tanking and that they're really bad.
Yes.
and I'll take the Browns to cover the 3.5 in Dallas. Boom.
There you go.
All right.
You got your Browns. You got your Browns sweater on there, Andy.
Got it. I got it on, man. I got it on. All right. Great stuff, guys. If we didn't get to any of your or all of your questions there, you can tweet us at AndyMC81 at SNSLD. We'll get to those there. Thank you so much for watching. For show, I'm Andy. You've been watching Fantasy Football Live on Sportsnet. Enjoy the games.